All right, so moving on now, let's talk about I May Destroy You. So basically, what this is, it's a British comedy drama, right? It was kind of not so much simultaneously cast both on BBC One and HBO. But how it was is that BBC One had all the episodes come out. Well, it's on a weekly basis actually, right? Just like
Right.
HBO. But HBO's screening of these episodes would be like about a 2-3 weeks behind, basically, right? So it's kind of weird, right? So I just waited for all the episodes to show on HBO to come out in HBO. Sorry, so I just kind of just ran through everything, right? And it's a 12 episode run. And just slight spoiler, I really doubt that there's going to be a second season. Reason being is
Right.
that it feels like this is a limited series, right? Similar to like Watchmen from last year, right? And it stars Michaela Coel, right?
Right.
This would be the first show that I've seen her like write and create, right? Because I know that she did Chewing Gum, right? Which I
Right.
believe
Yeah.
was on Netflix, but I never got around to see it for some reason.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Actually a pretty big fan of chewing gum. That show is absolutely hilarious to me.
Okay, is it
Then
straight comedy or comedy drama?
mostly comedy.
All right.
Mostly comedy. But in the case of thing, but she's done a bunch of other stuff like what she was probably most popular for was her role in
Black Mirror.
uh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
the start
yeah.
the start
The USS Callister one,
Palestine.
and
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
like, which by the way is one of my
yeah,
all time favorite
yeah.
Black Mirror episodes, right?
Yeah, still probably my favorite as well. Yeah, she was in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has been around. And well, the big thing about I May Destroy You is, well, she kind of took control of it, from what I understand. So it have an interesting behind the scenes kind of story about what happened with it, in terms of Netflix and the contract she had, and she, well, just surprisingly took control of the project.
Okay.
In terms
Okay.
of who making, yeah, yeah. So she kind of you know, took control of the contract, and then effectively kept full control of the whole thing.
Oh
Um,
wow, nice.
yeah, there's a whole contract shenanigans. Something she actually fought the big boys and won in this case now.
Right.
Right. This is one of these interesting, behind the scenes scenario about the whole thing, and it's interesting.
Yeah. I wonder if it's like she just got inspired by Issa Rae.
Well, yeah, I
You know,
mean,
what I mean?
it's
It
it's
was a
it's on that
handling,
level,
yeah.
even Nisari, still still not in control of anything in that grand sense, no, compared to this. No, this was like a real bold kind of move. No,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
you could find, yeah, yeah. I think the article, right? Yeah, the article was he rejected the $1 million offer by Netflix, in favor of BBC for the ownership now, because she just won't have had control over the whole situation.
Okay, I see, I see. Well, I would say this, right? So, as someone who has not seen Chewing Gum, this
Yeah,
show in particular feels like it need like it's like it's tailor made or fit basically for HBO. The style of it,
yeah,
and as I brought up, Issa Rae, so one of the shows, well, probably the show you could compare this to is Insecure, right? It
right,
has
right,
the same feel, basically the same kind of tone.
yeah,
The protagonist is similar in certain respects, and also they do that whole, recap thing, and on the next episode vibe. I mean, the way how it's cut is similar to the way how how Insecure does that, right? So
right, yeah,
right. So what it's about, right? It centers on a writer, right? She's played by Michaela. Her name is Arabella Isidue. She is, well, she has Ghanaian heritage, right?
Daniel,
And Ghanaian, sorry, Ghanaian
yeah,
heritage, right? Which is his, well, her friend Terry Pratchard, right? She also has Ghanaian heritage as well too, and they're best friends. Terry, well, on the one hand, she is a struggling actor. I mean, she's just trying to get her big break, while Arabella, she is Well, she pretty much put out a book, right, which is called Chronicles of a Fed Up Millennial, right? And she just put it out as a PDF online, and she just grew this huge fan base. So she, you know, what I mean, she has a following on like Twitter and Instagram, right? And she always periodically goes online and does those Twitter stuff, right? Instagram stuff, the whole social media stuff, right? Um, she works for a book publishing company, right? And she actually has to wrap up a particular draft of a new book that she's working on, right?
Right.
But what happens is that, well, an old friend of hers calls her like one night. Is like, hey, let's just go out. You know what I mean? Let's hang out. You know what I mean? Get
Right.
some beers and whatnot, right? So she goes there. The friend is there, and he actually has a couple of friends that she never saw before, right? But Terry's also there as well, and they're having fun, me knocking on drinks and whatnot. But what happens is that one of her drinks is spiked, right? So
Right.
somebody
Right.
spiked her drink, right? And one thing that leads to the next, she wakes up in the morning, and then she learns eventually that yes, she was raped.
Right.
And
Yeah.
from there now,
Right.
it's well,
Yeah. Go ahead.
okay. So what I love about this show here, just right off the bat, right? It doesn't do the whole, well, forgive me for saying this, the whole Hollywood cliche of, oh my God, my life is ruined. What do I do
Right.
now? Now I
Right.
must devote every second of my life to, finding out what happened and making sure nobody else suffers like I did and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
She lives her life. She goes on living her life. She has a lot to deal with, right? Mainly involving her finishing up this job because she just doesn't find the time to do so. Obviously, you know what I mean? Because what happened really did shock her, right? It really did shake her foundation, right? And luckily for her, Terry is there to kind of help be, part of her support system. Another person who helps out is a guy called Kwame, right, who is gay, and he has a
Right.
little subplot as well too, where, well, he technically gets raped as well too. All you can kind of see, it's sexual assault. You know what I mean, that kind of
Yeah.
vibe.
Well, it's still undermining consent. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So it's not technically like he was under the influence or whatnot. It was just
Right.
something that happened that he, said no to, but it happened, right?
Right. Right.
So, but how he deals with that situation is, well, from his discomfort into going to the police and having to explain what's going on, because
Right.
from the word go from the first episode, he kind of keeps his sexual identity to himself, right?
Right.
There's
Right.
this app called Grinder, so he's always on it, what I mean, just looking for random guys to sleep with, right? But it's not to the point that technically he just doesn't believe that he could just have a normal relationship with a guy, what I mean, because of that, because he just keeps it so hidden, right? So all through the season here, the series here, he's kind of questioning, whether he should just kind of put himself out there. There's even a
Right.
moment where he considers, dating women, and that actually does not play out well enough at all because, well, slight spoiler, she finds out that he's gay and she takes that as a serious offense. And me personally, I was just like, why are you being so hard on the guy, But the way how the show kind of frames the argument, I do get where she's coming from, right? But at the same time,
Right.
it's like you're just being way too hard on him, right? So that's his thing. But really, it's about Arabella, right? It's her trying to pick herself back up, really trying to live her life. And you see how suddenly, right? It's not all up in your face, right? How the rape itself, right? And then, well, I forgot to mention too, there's somebody else that she hooks up with, and similar to Kwame, there's a situation that takes place, I mean, out of consent. It's like, wow, I mean? So that shakes up as well too. And you just
Yep.
see slowly how that affects her. So it's not like mentally she goes crazy, but she just becomes a little overconfident. You know what I mean? She kind of lashes out at her friends and other people, and at one point becomes this sort of Me Too social media icon. You know what I mean? Just kind of calling out men. You know what I mean, for getting away with stuff like that. Now, you know what I mean?
Right. Right.
So
Right. Right.
it makes sense given what happened to her, but at the same time, it's like you're taking this a little too far. You know what I mean? So just to jump into the review here. So one thing I really loved about this show here is how realistic, quote unquote, this team is addressed, right? So it's not like all explicit, like, now we must find the perpetrator and kill him and all that kind of stuff, even though there's a moment in the final episode where that is more or less visualized. That's all I'll say. But what I really love here is that, it's not a dour series, right? It is very vibrant. It is funny, but not too funny, right? It's not funny, haha, right? It's just like, oh, just seeing characters live their lives and,
You're
just
right.
have normal banter with each other, but there's a point to it, right? And really, really, the person who shines throughout, of course, is Michaela, right? For one thing, she just has a really, really distinct look about her. Her
Yeah,
facial features alone, it's just, I don't know, something magnetic about how she looks. Like, I mean, and she does sell the
right.
insecurity. She sells the fear.
Yeah.
She sells the worry. You know what I mean?
Why
And
it
she sells
works?
the
Yeah.
joy too. You know,
Yeah. Why it works is that she does, because in the other
cheering
show,
up.
she right, in Chewing Gum, she have a jokey look, right?
Right.
But in this, because she normal, she have a normal feel about her. She's still
Right.
attractive, but not. She still look like a normal person.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. So
what's
like
what's
like
make it
like like Issa Rae. You know what I mean?
right,
Like,
Issa Rae,
yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
she feels a lot like Issa Rae in that sense, where she sells the humanism grounded in the state.
Yeah.
That's why her stuff works, I think. But because she not, that's the problem. When you see a comedian do serious thing, it is be kind of hard to think, but like the juxtaposition is work, and
Oh, like oh gosh,
other
like
factors like
when
that.
oh gosh, like when Chris Rock did that one drama film. I
Well,
can't remember what it was.
that's a kind of bad example, but
Okay, sorry.
well, yeah, I mean, I get your point, but yeah, but like I remember Pat Oswalt did something serious. Oh, like I'll give you an example, like how Pat Oswalt is the husband of that recent thing where the girl died, where the woman died in the
Oh,
and
um, is
she
it I'll
solved the
see you in
case.
the dark or something like that?
Right, right. She solved the murder. And
Yeah.
to see Pat Oswalt in something like that, but you know him as a hilarious guy, and to see his own material, 15 years ago, that you was laughing at being juxtaposed in this new context. It's that, she does that quite well. With this, that's what make it work now.
Right. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah,
And yeah, but yeah, really, what I loved is how real and how human these characters are.
right.
And it's never to the point that like the three main characters, Arabella, Terry, or Kwame. Like, yeah, they will make a bad decision ever so often, but it's not to the point that you just downright hate these characters or think that, oh, like how can you do that? Case in point, there's a little subplot involving, well, the use of drugs, right? Well, in
Right.
this case, recreational drugs, because earlier on, well, before the rape itself, there's a moment where Arabella and Terry actually goes to Italy, and they meet with this drug dealer guy named Biagio, and Arabella has a little fling with him, but he's kind of angry. Well, later on, he's pissed off now that she had to drink Spike. It's like, how can you do this? You're supposed to be more careful, blah blah blah, all that
Right,
kind of
right,
stuff.
right, right. Right. So you
And
get
then
into that.
right,
It
right, right.
right. What it covers things well. If you could understand why things did she kind of cover the whole why it is that people don't talk up, and that whole, for lack of a better term, victim blaming aspect of the whole scenario, and you could
Yes.
you could understand, but that also humanizes that as well, where how somebody could fall into that framework and space now. You telling yourself, well, I would have cut your ass now, or I would have hunt him down. That bullshit now.
Yeah.
But not
Yeah, but
realizing
easy
that.
for you to say, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, and not realizing how these stuff tend to how they actually tend to play out now. But yeah, go ahead now.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I really dug how they touch on, well, the use of recreational drugs, right? Well, recreational drugs, yes, but there is some cocaine use as well. So,
Right,
but it's really, for her to get turned up at the clubs and all that kind of stuff, right? And
right.
how she plays it is both funny and kind of tragic at the same time too. Like, you're just watching this and like, yeah, you see, this is why I can't do that to them. That's why I can't do drugs. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
she plays that line very very well. So it's never glorifying the act of taking drugs, but you could see how, yeah,
right.
you legit makes you look like a fool, and you make really bad decisions and all that
Yeah,
kind of stuff. But yeah, I really dug how this show explored, well, all three characters, right? Well, mainly Arabella and Kwame's character. I
Right.
dug Kwame's arc, you know what I mean? Him
Yeah.
feeling as if like he needs to be the best person he should be before he
Right.
even jumps into a relationship. So
Yeah.
that's why
This.
things for him is like, all flings and whatnot. He doesn't
Yeah.
take it seriously, you know?
Yeah. Kwame's arc is also interesting as well because they get into that vicious circle in the gay community about, okay, so like that's always a kind of nasty stereotype, right? The relationship between homosexuality and abuse and
Right.
that correlation. Now people just assume it, treat it like if it's a natural thing. It's not, but it existed by correlation simply because it's an underground community, right? It's a
Yeah.
relationship between drugs and crime, right?
Right.
There's nothing intrinsically, wrong with drugs in that sense. And it's to speak of drugs and the use of drugs as well. But because, we turn it into something criminal, the driving of the underground is what the cause of the pathology is. Now, it's the same thing I would argue with a lot of the LGBT community. Like even though it's not intrinsically, I don't think it's intrinsically related to abuse, but because it attracts abusers, because it's so hidden, and again, because of the culture of shame and people absolutely refusing to be honest about a lot of these things, that is why it's so difficult to sort out now. They get into that now.
Right. Right. Right.
And I think that's handled well as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
If I just have one gripe with the show though, is that I felt that they didn't really wrap up Kwame's arc well enough. It,
Right,
it just kind of leaves it open basically, right? That's all I would say, right?
right,
But I just felt it could have come to like some sort of conclusion. Like he really did he find what he was looking for all this time? And I mean, or not, right? There's also a side character who's introduced that brought another layer to the show. That would be the character of Theodora.
right,
She is a white woman, and she's actually the more or less the founder of this foundation, basically for battered and abused women, right? And she starts off the episode basically she saying that she is like totally against, what I mean, the abuse of women, right? And then what happens, not to spoil too much, is that well, she actually was a former classmate of Arabella and Terry, right, when they were
right,
in high school, right, or secondary school actually. And what happens, not to spoil too much, is that there was this little incident where she had sex with this black guy, but so one thing Niti next, he kind of wanted to show off what happened, but then she kind of frames the whole situation as her being well raped by this guy now.
right.
So
Yeah,
once people find out what happened, it's like, oh, you know what I mean? No, you could do that,
yeah,
blah 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 blah, blah, right? But then there's a moment where she reveals the reason why, and what I love about that moment is that it goes against the whole. Oh, you know what I mean? You have daddy issues basically. So it takes the whole daddy issues cliche, flips it and says, no, this is actually what happened, and this is why I have so much low self esteem and why I would do something like that. So you could look
right,
at me and say, "Oh, I'm some sort of hoe, or whatnot," but it's like you don't know me. You don't know what it is I had to deal with and what the decision I was forced to make at a very young age. Now that affect me going forward. So that just add
right.
a whole new light to that one character,
Yeah.
right? I was like,
Okay, so
wow, okay,
yeah, what does make a lot of the so this is something that white is. I was trying to like I just study. So I even though I try to understand this a lot of, like, for lack of a better term, marginalized groups as best as I can. I don't consider myself part of any kind of marginalized group per se. Though I live in
right,
Trinidad. Most of my I only know in personal life, only know like what two gay people ever. Um,
See,
but
same here to be honest. Same here
yeah,
to be honest.
exactly right. Yeah, most of it is by proxy and just actual research, right?
Yeah,
But what one pattern I have noticed as an outsider, as a relative outsider, just understanding, how say how trans people go through life, or how the struggle of gay people, or whoever it is, whoever. What I have noticed is and this might get me in a little trouble, but the whole virtue signaling aspect of the culture of this thing, right? And what people talk about when they talk about virtue signaling. And that is an interesting piece of, how to use the term, boy, over determination, if for lack of a better term. What that means is it's a singular behavior, but it has different intentions behind it. Let me see if I could break this down to the best of my ability. When you see somebody engage in something not entirely honest, you're not sure why they're not being honest,
Right.
right? So when somebody engaging in, and for lack of a better term, virtue, just to explain quickly, virtue signaling is when somebody jumping on the bandwagon of something, but you're not sure why. Because virtue signaling could be noble, but it could also be insidious at the same time, right?
Right. I
Because
got you.
it's ultimately somebody not being fully honest about a thing, right? So
Hmm.
somebody could be dishonest, but for good reasons, right? So I could say I would want to defend somebody or at least a friend or somebody like that who's marginalized, and I might be dishonest about that, by saying something about myself, but that could be for a good reason. But then somebody could also say something dishonest about themselves for a bad reason. And it take me a kind of while to sort out what exactly going on here in the dark side of that. Like, so in dealing with LGBT issues, especially, white desert people have no problem jumping on the bandwagon and be a bad guy, would be of the good guy back about 10, 15 years ago, and then come across like a bad guy now, right?
Right. Right.
So,
Right. I got you.
right.
Yeah.
So I'll give an example would be somebody like Ellen DeGeneres, right? Ellen DeGeneres, she has been on the forefront of gay struggle for the last, better about 20, 30 years.
Uh-huh.
Um, but now she's being looked as a bad guy for being effectively an abuser at work, right? Because central
Yes. 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 So
conceit,
so I've heard.
right? Exactly. So the central conceit, or even somebody like say J.K. Rowling, right? And it take me a while to sort out what it is. And there's actually an old Catholic term for what's going on, right? If you know what simony is, anyone knows what that is, right? It's an old Catholic concept where it's basically somebody buying their way into the thing. So they're supporting LGBT, blah blah blah, but they don't really believe it. But
Right. Right.
they're allies, and people who part of the struggle have to be very careful. And this is go along the lines because it applies to Black people constantly. This goes along the lines in that context. This goes heavily along the lines of who you're choosing as your allies now, because it could help you, but it could also be a problem later on. Another example would be presidential candidates, right? Was Hillary Clinton a pro LGBT person? Not necessarily, right? Because she accepts these ideas very, very late in her political career, right?
Hmm.
Right, something like that. You see all these little weird little trade-offs now, and this series actually does a really good job with that. Um, addressing, you could really understand that they break down why people will make all these little human mistakes and how come we just, it's not some straightforward solution
Yeah.
or answer. You could see why it's taking long. It's really shocking how Michaela really does this, on a normal human level, right? It's not,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
not, it's
Yes.
not, yeah, it's not on the level of policy, on the level of some grand social, it's a soapboxy statement, right? It's, as to say, how to be didactic without being didactic, right? That's the trick to it. And it's shocking how the writing does this so well. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. I mean, the writing for this, which she handles, is stellar in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, she did the writing for all 12 episodes, and it's just how she's able to, address these themes. You know what I mean? But still showing these characters as just human. So, yeah, I really dug the characterization for this. The music choices are spot on. You know what I mean? There's a lot of,
Yeah.
well, of course, UK music. You know what I mean? A lot of hip hop. There's which catch me off guard, but then when I think about it, it makes sense. There's
Right.
there's quite a there's quite a amount of Janelle Monáe songs on this,
Right.
and when they use though, it works. Especially two particular songs that plays out in the final episode. And just to talk quickly about the final episode before I get to my final thoughts of the rating, it just mainly involves, well, the whole situation that has been established from day one, right? Because what happens is that because she was inebriated, she had no idea the who was the guy who raped her, right? So it's just a matter of her finding out who she is, and then, well, when the identity is revealed now, it's just like, okay, how do we stop this guy? How do we play this out? And the way how they play it out, though, not to spoil anything,
Mm-hmm.
I thought worked though, because really what it is just like a scenario of how this situation play out, but really it's how Arabella comes out of this. But I really, really dug this show here. It's not gonna be for everyone though, given its subject matter. But what I love is how it touches on the subject matter without being too, dismal and dire. You know what I mean? Like people
Right.
still
Right.
live lives, people still have fun. This is yet another show where I see middle to upper class black people, living lives living the same lives that I want to live. Being able
Right.
to go to fancy restaurants on a
Well,
weekday.
that's the
I
far
mean?
fetch. That's the far fetch part of this, right?
I know, but it just reminds me of like Insecure, why I like Insecure for. Just see
Yeah,
just how they portray the nightlife basically. I love
that,
stuff like that. Right?
yeah,
As the same thing here with the show.
that never happens.
I know, but it's just like to believe that it does.
You know,
Like if you
like
just have a black, like if you just have a black card, you could just do anything. You could just literally just like in Insecure, like the last season we talked about, jump on a plane and go to Italy. Like that's what Arabella does. She just like jumps on the plane and goes
yeah,
to Italy
yeah,
just
stripters.
because. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
but I don't know. It's fantasy, whatever. I just want to be at that level, but whatever, right? But yeah, characterization was great. The dialogue was great in this. You know what I mean? It's very English, very rich British, you know what I mean, and accents and all that kind of stuff, right? But I really dug how they touch on the subject matter without being too heavy, without being too much in your face. Like, yes, it's a serious issue, but the show will remind you of how serious it is, but at the same time, it kind of shows you, I mean, for better or for worse, that life does go on, right? And where the show really shines is, yeah, how Arabella kind of moves on, or does she move on, you know what I mean, in a sense, or how this thing really affects her in her daily life, right? So, yeah, I mean, I've been gushing over this show long enough. This is one of my favorite shows of 2020, bar
yeah,
none.
yeah.
Isn't the best thing I've seen all year, mind you, right?
Right,
But
right.
it is still a solid show. It is worth binging, even though I kind of took like I mean, I took my time to watch all 12 episodes out. But believe you me, I was glued to the screen. I couldn't wait to see what happened next. I just love seeing these characters, how they interact with each other and how they deal with things, right? Now, depending on where you are or what you believe, I mean, when it comes to, topics that are addressed in the show here, you may have your agreement or disagreement with a character. You may like or dislike a character, but because they just portrayed as human beings, I was just like, yeah, just want to see them learn. I want to see them grow and develop and all that kind of stuff. And where they well, with the exception of of Kwame, which I felt, just kind of stops, you know, there. You know what I mean? I just wish that it wasn't so, open ended. Where they took the characters emotionally, life wise, all that stuff, I just dug. So, yeah, I mean, not much more I could say rated wise. I'm going with a strong four to. I like 4.5 out of 5 for this one, man. This is
Right.
another win for HBO. I would say if you really dug shows, if you really enjoy shows like Insecure, yeah, this you'll fit in nicely with this show here. But if you're not used to shows like that, um, I'm not saying watch Insecure first, but yeah, give this show a look. And last thing I want to say is that the way how it ends, it ends in such a way that this is pretty much the end of the show here. And for me, I think it works. I don't think that we need to see another season of how Arabella is dealing with you know that rape and all that kind of stuff, right? It's not like Insecure where it's just, oh, you know what I mean, it's just a thing, an insecurity thing, right? The situation is rectified, so to speak, and that's it. So everybody kind of learn their lesson and you move on. So yeah, really, yeah. So really, I really definitely recommend checking out I May Destroy You. This really lived up to the hype. Michaela Coel, I mean, as a writer and just as an actress, as an actor, she just kills it with this one, and I just really can't wait to see what she does next. But yeah, this more than lived up to the hype though. I love the ambition that went into it. I love the writing and the nuance that went into it. And yeah, definitely give this one a look, man.
Yeah. Yeah.